Hey there. So I am in the mean streets of Detroit right now. It is the morning of debate night, but not for Andrew Yang, just for the other people. It is Tuesday. I am at the event for the first night of debates, the Yang Gang event.
Thank you, Detroit. Let's give it up again for Steve Marchin. Yeah! Everywhere I go, the Yang Gang. It's so great. This morning I went to play some basketball at the YMCA, and what did I see? I saw a math sign right on the lamppost. I was like, I love the Yang Gang. Everywhere we go. So Steve, if you don't know, Steve ran for governor in New Hampshire. Governor of New Hampshire this past cycle, and he's been one of the key people that's gotten us up to 5% in New Hampshire. There's so many people in New Hampshire who said, if Steve is for Andrew Yang, I need to watch Andrew Yang in action. And so the crowd started getting bigger, and you can see why Steve's such a leader in that state. And here in Michigan, it's phenomenal to be back. I've been coming here every year since 2010. And the first time I came was just as the city was descending into bankruptcy. And there's a lot of extremes in the way Detroit gets depicted in the media. It's either like, oh, it's all awesome, or it's all, the opposite of awesome. But the first time I came to Detroit, that time I was blown away by how rough it was, frankly, heading into bankruptcy, and the progress this place has made. 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, come back every single year. And it's many of you that have helped rebuild this city. I just want to shout out to the folks who helped make Detroit what it is today. Thank you all so much. Because it was in rough shape. It was in rough shape post-bankruptcy. When I came here too, I became friends with a guy named Dan Gilbert, who recently just had a stroke and is now recovering. And if you don't know Dan and his work here in the city, I'm a huge Dan Gilbert fan. I've spent time with him and his family. He's a family man, he's a patriot, he's done great things for the city of Detroit. And my time here in Detroit helped influence what brought me to you all running for president. During this cycle, I came to Detroit thinking what this country needs is more entrepreneurs in places like Detroit that would build businesses and generate jobs. And that was completely true. But what I did not realize was that for every job that we were creating as entrepreneurs in Detroit or Cleveland or New Orleans or Birmingham, we were going to get rid of 10 or 100 jobs at the same time. And I started to realize that my work was like pouring water into a bathtub that had a giant hole ripped in the bottom, which is a very terrible feeling as an entrepreneur. So pouring water in this bathtub helped create several thousand jobs, including hundreds right here in Detroit. And people are clapping me on the back, everyone's saying, nice job, Andrew, nice job. And I was like, no, you don't get it. Like, this water's going in, and there's like this giant hole in the bathtub, and the water's rushing out. And then Donald Trump became our president in 2016. Now, I know many of you voted for Donald Trump, and it's cool. Meaning, here in Michigan, Michigan went to Donald Trump as a state. And the fact to me that we elected Donald Trump as our president, to me, was this giant red flag or cry for help, or really just saying this system is not working for us. And so to me, the reaction then should have been digging into the reasons why he won places like Michigan and Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa. And to me, the driving force behind his victory in these states was that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs. 4 million manufacturing jobs. Think about that, that's 4 million families. There's probably something like 16, 20 million people that got affected. And during that time, unfortunately, our country's not leveled with us about what that's meant. It said, hey, it's okay, everyone will get retrained. And then when I dug into the retraining numbers, I found that the numbers were really, really rough. Do you all want to know the success rates of federally funded retraining programs?
0 to 15.
Yeah, someone's Yang Gang is 0 to 15%. that half of the workers that lost their manufacturing jobs here in Michigan left the workforce and never worked again. And of that group, half filed for disability. Now, none of this was in my economics textbook. None of this to me was in the national conversation. But this is the reality of what happened here in Detroit and in Ohio and around the Midwest and these manufacturing communities. So I said, okay, this is the central problem. And I went to Washington, D.C., and I asked them, said, hey, what are we going to do about the fact that America is going through the greatest economic transformation in our country's history? And you know what the folks in Washington, D.C. said to me? First they said, who the hell are you? The first thing they said. I was like a fairly connected guy, so I was meeting with very, very senior people. I was meeting with senators, Congress people, very, very serious policymakers. And the number one thing they said was, we can't talk about that. Literally, that's a direct quote. When I said, what are we going to do about this economic transformation? They said, can't talk about it. Number two, they'd say, we should study that. We should look into that. And then number three was, we must educate and retrain Americans for the jobs of the future. And then when I said, hey, that stuff doesn't work, their response to that was, well, I guess we'll get better at it. And then they just went back to their salad. One of them in D.C. said to me something that stuck with me, brought me here to you all today. He said, Andrew, no one here in Washington, D.C. is going to do anything about this set of problems. Because here in Washington, D.C., we are not a town of leaders, we're a town of followers. And in order for us in Washington, D.C. to do anything about this, you would have to create a wave in other parts of the country and bring that wave crashing down on our heads. And I heard that and I said, challenge accepted. And that's why I'm here with you tonight. So this was 2017, and at that point, when I decided to run for president, I was an anonymous entrepreneur. And we got started, and some of my best friends were like, hey, Andrew, this is a crazy idea. Now, some people who know me really well knew about the founding of Venture for America and said, Andrew, I thought founding Venture for America was a crazy idea, and you did that, so this time I'm going to get on board. But that was not most of the folks in the public, that was not the people in the press. And so thinking about the progress from 2017 to now, oh my gosh, not only am I on this debate stage tomorrow night with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and the rest of them, but we are this close now to qualify for the fall debates in September and October, which would make us officially one of the top 10 candidates in the whole race. And you guys know the inside scoop. I say this close. We thought we had it already. But no, this actually is a big win for us because we raised $100,000 just today because people are so pissed off. So we're gonna have our cake and eat it too. It's like there are a bunch of polls coming on. As you can tell at this point, we're gonna put up another 2% or more in another qualifying poll probably this week. And so this has actually been probably a win for us. We were joking that maybe the DNC did us a favor. Maybe the DNC's Yang Gang. Well, you don't help them. You don't help them as if we pretend to stick it to them. So we're this close. We've already blown past the donor threshold. We're at about 150,000 donors, which makes us either 7 or 8 in terms of the donor count. So thank you all for making the donation and making 150,000. And then in the qualifying polls, as you can see, we're just going up and up and up. And a person in Washington, D.C. said to me straight up, she said, people in Washington, D.C. are stunned by your campaign. They said it makes no sense that this guy would come out of nowhere and outperform sitting senators, sitting governors, sitting congressmen and women who've been planning to run for years. They've been jockeying for this, they've been raising money, they were like, this is going to be my big chance to run for president, and you are beating them. And the folks in Washington, D.C. are literally saying, like, this makes no sense. This cannot be happening, but it is happening. And it's happening in large part because folks around the country know that our government is not actually answering the challenges of today. It's barely even trying. It's like barely even pretending to try. Our government has been taken captive by moneyed interests. It's been taken captive by corporate lobbyists. And right now, if you can't listen to your people when they elect Donald Trump as president, what's it going to take? To me, this is like the clearest feedback that the American people can give is that say, look, this is not working. And then we still can't hear it. We still can't hear it. It blows my mind. So I heard it, and I said, we need to start solving the real problems of the American people. We need to actually make an economy that works for us. And it's here in Detroit that I learned just how misshapen our economy has become, how punishing it has become. When I came here to Detroit and I saw a city that was once 1.7 million people, now 680,000 people, you go through neighborhoods and you see all the blasted out buildings in neighborhoods, and you realize that the city of Detroit doesn't have the money to properly demolish those buildings. Talking about tens of thousands of derelict buildings in Detroit city limits. And so to me, are we a country where we're just going to look around and say, well, I guess one of the great American cities now has tens of thousands of derelict buildings, there's nothing we can do about it? That's what we are right now, and to me that makes zero sense. I started coming here in 2010 being like, hey, how is it that in a country where we know we need to create work for millions of Americans, we know that our infrastructure is literally crumbling before our eyes, and then you come to a place like Detroit and you see all this work that needs to be done, and we can't even bring ourselves to do that work? Like, that to me is like the biggest myth in American life, where you look around and say, we don't have the money. Are you kidding me? It's like, you all remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout on Wall Street? No, none of us remembers that. Because none of us voted for it. Do you remember anyone in Washington, D.C. looking around at that point saying, like, where's the money? Where are we going to get the money? Of course not. When it was Wall Street's turn, they said, oh yeah, let's pull that lever and give them the $4 trillion. I say it's time for a bailout for the people. It's time for a bailout of Detroit. Are you with me? So that's what the freedom dividend is all about. And when you first heard about my campaign, you heard there's an Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. And all those things are true. I know the first time you heard it, you were like, this sounds like a gimmick. But this is a deeply American idea. Thomas Paine was for it at the founding of our country. Martin Luther King championed it in the 1960s, and it was what he was fighting for when he was assassinated. 1,000 economists endorsed it in the 70s. And one state has had a dividend in effect for almost 40 years. And what state is that?
Alaska!
And how do they fund it?
Oil!
And what is the oil of the 21st century?
Technology.
Technology, that's right. What they're doing for the people in Alaska with oil money, we can do for everyone in the U.S. with technology money. And what I said is, look, Amazon, our biggest company, $1 trillion tech company, paid zero in taxes last year. Think about that for a second. Amazon sucking up $20 million in business every year, closing 30% of stores and malls, and you get zero. And then people are like, hey, where's the money going to come from? Of course you're going to have a hard time paying for things if Amazon's paying zero in taxes. How many of you all paid zero in taxes last year? No one here. And if you did, you'd be too smart to admit to it. I know, it's cool. I've got excellent accounting. We all pay more than zero in taxes. We have to create a system where we're all getting to sharing the progress and innovation that's happening in other segments of the economy. Again, that's the big myth, is that we don't have the money. We have the money. Right now we're getting brainwashed into thinking that we're in an environment of scarcity. We are not. We can be in an environment of abundance like this. It just takes enough of us getting together and saying we are the owners and shareholders of this country, and we can declare ourselves a dividend. And when companies declare a dividend, like Microsoft comes out and says, hey, we're going to start paying shareholders, everyone says that's a great idea. They say, good job, good management. And you know what they never say? What are the shareholders going to do with the money? You know, they never like, oh, are we sure the shareholders are going to make good decisions with the money? Think about that for a second. It's ridiculous to even suggest that. But what happens in the United States if you say, hey, we're going to give people money, we're going to give ourselves, we're the owners of this country, it's a democracy, we're going to give ourselves money. Like, oh, people are going to mess it up. It's like, are you kidding me? It's our money. We're the shareholders of the country, and then if we get this dividend into our hands, we can build a trickle-up economy from our people and our families and our communities up. And I want you to imagine after I'm president in 2021, where would the money actually go in real life? Like, how would you spend it? New business, car repairs,
Night out.
night out, I like where his head's at. Volleyball camp. It sounds like you're a parent. How many of y'all are parents? Now, imagine being able to look at your son and daughter and say, when you turn 18, you're going to get $1,000 a month from your country because your country loves you, your country values you, and you're an American. And you think your kid's going to have a better attitude? So it's going to go to car repairs, to daycare, to Little League signups. It's going. How much of the money would stay right here in your communities? Most of it. Jeff Bezos and the gang would get a little bit of it. You buy an extra toaster. But most of it would stay right here because that's where most of the money gets spent. It would go into local businesses. It would create jobs right here in your communities. And one of the things I talk about is how we're measuring the economy all wrong. Right now, if you turn on CNBC, what do they tell you about the economy? What numbers are they using? GDP, headline unemployment rate, stock market prices. Now, each of these numbers is almost intentionally misleading. So GDP's at record highs right now. That's accurate. You know what else are at record highs right now? Student debt, stress, depression, anxiety, drug overdoses, suicides, all at record highs. It's gotten so bad that our life expectancy has declined for the last 3 years. That's almost unheard of in a developed country. Developed countries do not have declining life expectancies for 1 year, let alone 3 years. Y'all know the last time America's life expectancy declined for 3 years? The Spanish flu of 1918. Right, we're in like century-old Spanish flu territory. So I'm going to ask you all, what good is record high GDP if your people are starting to die younger? And something like self-driving trucks will be great for GDP. It's going to be terrible for the 3.5 million Americans who drive a truck for a living. So if you weren't going to use GDP, what would you actually be excited about? How many of you got excited about GDP when you woke up this morning? You're like, I'm going to make a big contribution to GDP this week. So if GDP is meaningless to you, because it's meaningless to all of us at this point, what would actually be meaningful to you? What would actually get you excited if I were to tell you this got better? Average income and affordability, sure. You know, people made more money, yeah.
Clean air and water.
Clean air and clean water. Would that make you more excited if I say, hey, your air and water got cleaner? Yeah, that would make me happy too as a parent.
Less poverty.
Less poverty. Better roads.
Cheaper education.
Better education, how our kids are doing.
Better hygiene.
What was that?
Better hygiene.
Dental hygiene?
No, sorry. Better hygiene.
Better hygiene? I'll take it, sure, we're cleaner, why not? Who likes dirty people? How about mental health and freedom from substance abuse? Our own physical health and well-being? You're not going to believe this, but we can actually make those the measurements of the economy. There's nothing stopping us. Even the inventor of GDP, Simon Kuznets, said almost 100 years ago when he invented it, he said 3 things. Number 1, there's a terrible measurement for national well-being and we should not use it as that. Number 2, we should include parenthood and motherhood because they're so important. And number 3, we should not include national defense spending because it adds no economic value. So of course we ignored all 3 of those things and now we're following GDP off a cliff. And I like to talk about my wife who's at home with our 2 boys right now, one of whom is autistic. What is her work calculated at in GDP every day? 0. What is the market value of her work at? 0. We know that's the opposite of the truth. We know that her work is among the most challenging and vital for our country's future. Certainly more valuable than the work I was doing as a corporate attorney a number of years ago. And so right now we're measuring the wrong things and we can't make progress. How many of you have run a business or an organization? Imagine if you had the wrong measurements. How would that business or organization do? Pretty terribly, right? You'd be like, oh, I'm doing great on this measurement. That doesn't mean anything. So if we have the right measurements in place, we can make real progress. And as president, this is an easy fix. I just go down the street to the Bureau of Economic Analysis and I say, hey, GDP is 100 years old. It's time for an upgrade to things that include our health and our mental health and childhood success rates and environmental quality. And this is the new American scorecard. And I will report to you, the American people, every year at the State of the Union, how we're doing on the measurements that matter. I'll be the first president to use a PowerPoint at the State of the Union. Yes, the American president is coming. And the PowerPoint would be there, and it would actually be spelled out black and white, and you'd see, wow, 8 Americans are dying of drugs every day. That's unacceptable. It's actually an hour, isn't it? Say an hour. I got it wrong. 8 Americans are dying every hour. That's unacceptable. So here's how we need to get that rate down. We have like the real stats up every year, and then see what direction we're heading. That's how organizations make progress. That's how our country needs to make progress. So this is the plan. As your president, I will update our measurements to the 21st century. I will lay a new foundation with the freedom dividend, and then I will start solving the real problems on the ground that got Donald Trump into office. And I will start listening to the American people. We can build a trickle-up economy that works for us, but it needs to be coming from us. There is no other way for this to happen. I have been to Washington, D.C., and they will never touch any of these issues. They don't understand them. They make money off of them. They're bought and sold. They don't care. It's true. Like, our leadership is so out of touch. When I go to Washington, D.C., it's like a whole other world there. Did you know that the Washington, D.C. metro area is now the richest part of the United States? Yeah, it is. You can look that up and think about that. So why are they looking to change anything? They are not looking to change anything. It has to come from us. And that's why this campaign is growing and growing. That's why we've surprised people up to this point. But I'll say that our popularity, there was an analyst who looked at our campaign and said Andrew Yang's polling at 2-3%. He gets mentioned less in the press than every other candidate. His name recognition is lower than every other candidate. And so they looked at these numbers and they said, looking at Andrew's low name recognition and familiarity, there is a very real possibility that as more people find out about him, he grows and grows and grows and wins the whole thing. Because like it or not, many of the other Democratic candidates have defined ceilings. You know, their name recognition is very, very high. That means that they're at a certain place, but a lot of them don't have room for growth past a certain point. That the American people have kind of locked in perceptions of a significant number of the Democratic candidates. Now, in our case, we're attracting people from all over the political spectrum. We're getting people who voted for Donald Trump, and you can go ahead and raise your hand and applaud if that describes you. Yeah, love it. Let's give a round of applause. We're getting independents. All right, so against the wall. We're getting libertarians. We're getting conservatives. Good man. Yeah, we're getting Democrats. We're getting progressives. Well, there's some people that aren't accounted for here. What the heck did I miss? Some folks who are like, none of these describe me. But as you can see, we're getting people from all over the spectrum. We can build a much bigger, broader coalition to beat Donald Trump in 2020. Because as I say, it's not left, it's not right, it's forward. And that's when we represent the country in 2020. So I'm going to give you guys a bit of a preview into tomorrow's debate. Just because it's fun, and we're here, and it's obviously on everyone's mind. We are in such a sweet spot as a campaign. Because if you look at the candidates who are on that stage, half of them are in desperation mode. Where they're at 1% or less in some cases, and their campaign staff literally saying to them, you have to set the world on fire on this debate stage, or we're all going to quit. I mean, that's actually what goes on in these campaigns. It's like, because if you don't make the next debate, then we can't raise any money, and then we're all going to just move on to greener pastures. So that's half of the candidates on the stage. It's one reason why when you watch these debates, you'll see people acting in very, very aggressive, somewhat artificial ways, because that's what their incentives are. Then you have the other top candidates who have been instructed to just respond to any attacks and beat them back with a stick, and here are the rehearsed attack lines you have for anyone who messes with you, who's like this candidate, that candidate, that candidate. We are in neither of these positions. I'm not so prominent that it helps any candidate to attack Andrew Yang, you know what I mean? It's like, does attack Andrew Yang really help your campaign? Not really. Think about this for a second, it's actually quite funny. It's like you know, that's one reason why. How many of you saw the mock Twitter exchange I had with Michael Bennett? Yeah, and we were looking at it. I'm friendly with Michael, so I knew he'd enjoy it. But it's just one of the reasons why it was so ridiculous is that I would never attack someone who's below me in the polls. That's like if you look at the attacks, you'll notice they only go in one direction. It's always up. Like no one ever will try and attack someone who's below them unless they're being attacked by that person. So we're in this very, very distinct situation where we're not so popular that it makes sense for anyone to attack us, but we're also not in a position where if we don't set the world on fire, then we don't make the fall debates. Because as you can tell, we're going to make the fall debates very, very easily. And so I get a free lane just to make my case to the American people and look like, I hope, the voice of reason on the stage tomorrow night. Because I'm just going to be focused just on trying to solve the problems, and everyone else will be throwing rocks at each other or trying to hit the rocks back. And I'm just going to be standing there being like, oh. And the hope is that I can be like one of you on that stage, reacting like the average American watching it all unfold. And like, how is the average American going to be receiving what they see on the debate stage? Circus. Reality show. I need a what? I need a cocktail. Oh, you're not alone. Like, this is the reaction most Americans are having. Most Americans are turning on these debates and they're not coming away being like, yes! I'm inspired by both our political process and like, you know, that's not the reaction Americans are having. Certainly not the reaction I'm having, being in the belly of the beast. And so the hope is that I can be the candidate that embodies you all, the people of this country, and can also point out just how messed up and weird our process has become. It's that process that resulted in Donald Trump becoming our president. Because if you turn every election into a reality TV show, guess who wins? A reality TV star. He's actually better at it than most anyone else who's participating. So this is a little bit about where we are as a campaign tonight and tomorrow. I'm going to be watching tonight's debate just like you all. I'll probably be live tweeting it, trying to make sense of it in a fun way. And then tomorrow we've got essentially an open lane where we'll be the voice of reason, trying to solve the real problems of the American people. I think it's going to serve us very, very well. And most Americans, even after the last debate where I did not get much airtime or speaking time, we still got hundreds of thousands of people to our website because they turned on the TV and they had that reaction that I've always been talking about, which is who is the Asian guy standing 2 people away from Joe Biden? Now, which gives me some joy, and it does give me a lot of pride to be the first Asian American to run for president. And it gives me pride to be representing Asian Americans up on that debate stage when they turn. I can imagine just Americans of any background just turning on and being like, "Oh, interesting, Asian guy I've never heard of." Like up there running for president, and it's like Google that, and you're like, they probably either Google Andrew Yang or Asian guy running for president. One of those two. They both land in the same place. But it gives me joy to imagine that playing out in living rooms on smartphones around the country, and then people. This is what happened after the last debate, and I did not have much in the way of airtime. So this time, our airtime is going to be much, much bigger and longer. And so we're really, really excited. We're going to get, I think, hundreds of thousands. We're at 2 or 3% nationally right now. After I have the voice of reason tomorrow night, and hundreds of thousands of Americans come check out the Yang Gang and what we're all about, we're just going to numbers rise and rise, make the fall debates, just going to continue to pound our message. As the field constricts, a lot of the energy that was going to many of the other second-tier candidates is going to come right here. Because of the folks who are attracted to these other candidates that are then now going to be dropping out, a lot of them are looking for an alternative to the front runners. And guess who's going to be the primary alternative to the front runners in the fall? This guy. So this is a plan from we could not do it without you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Particularly thank you to people who come in from out of town. Raise your hand if you came in from out of town. Yeah, yeah. Look at this. Give a round of applause. Yeah. Lacey, Russell, everyone's like, all the people, familiar faces. I can't tell you what a joy it is to come and see people. Like, it doesn't matter where I'm in the country, like, I see familiar faces, I see all the passion and love and support for this movement that we're building. It's incredible, and it's invigorating. I can't thank you all enough. And one of the lines that we're gonna make sure and get out there tomorrow night is that Donald Trump got some of the problems right, but his solutions were all wrong. And the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes that. Let's make America think harder. Thank you all the best. I'm going to give you some high fives. All right, guys. All right, we're going to be fun. Andrew, come back over here. Please don't get hot. All right. So I promised everybody we'll get a photo in a minute with Andrew. So my name is Zach. For those of you who haven't met me in this campaign, Andrew, nice to see you all. Quick story before we wrap. So for those of you who's come to these before, you maybe heard this story. So when I first started on the campaign, there's just a few of us, and I blew up in the office. I blew up a headline in an article from the New York Times. And I put it on our wall. It said, Andrew Yang is a longer than long shot for the White House in 2020. Yeah, I'll take that. Okay, sure. And then I put that on the wall and I said to staff, guys, that's the floor. That's our bar, let's beat it. And then about 6 months later, I put up another headline. It's from our favorite political blog called 538, and Nate Silver. He said, Andrew Yang is a semi-serious contender for the White House in 2020. And then what happened, guys? We hit our first poll. And then we hit 65,000 donors. And then we hit 130,000 donors. And right now, we are officially in 6th place in this race. And we're going to be all first place. We're no longer in long shot, boys and girls. We are in this position. So, however, campaigns run on two things. They run on passion, which everybody's got lots of. And then they run on money, which not everybody has a lot of. But some of you have some. So, a couple of things to know. We are not a traditional campaign in the sense that we have lots of DNC butlers just itching in line to throw the establishment weight behind our guys. How do we raise money? We raise money through people all over the country. Our average donation is like $26, cheaper than Bernie's. As Andrew loves to joke. But we also raise money for what I call your normal, not bought, rich person, or relatively wealthy person. So some of you maybe reflect that. How does that work? I have a couple friends that maybe have a couple $1,000s we can shake down to help Andrew Yang. We get enough people like that, and you'd be surprised what you can get behind a guy like Andrew Yang. So if you are that person, you're sitting like, I have a couple friends that might be able to throw down $1,000 or two. I'm your guy. I will come find you. I have no fight. I'm very nice. And we will help you. We have a whole team to help you do that. So that's the one. So there's 2 reasons to give. And then I'll wrap. Number one, because it's the best investment you'll ever make. You give me $2,000 or so right now. And then in 2020 or 2021, you will get $12,000 a year for the rest of your life. So that's what we call the math. That's the math. So don't forget that. But number 2 is this, guys. I want you to think about it. Think about this. Really picture this, okay? So far, we started this race, and we came out. We had no money, no name recognition, no political experience, no press. Think about that. What you're talking about, a completely anonymous man, was now in 6th place with President of the United States. So what I mean is oh man, if I give this guy $1,000, if I raise money from him, what is he going to do with it? Guys, look what we did with no money. Wait till we get some heavy hitters on this guy. We are going to light the world on fire.
So we need you guys to think about that. It will be the best investment you ever made. From the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of all of us on the staff, thank you, thank you, thank you. We love you, Yang Gang. We love you.